Happy New Year! I am so excited to be chatting with you today. I thought it would be fun to, one, share some of my bookish goals for the year. There aren't that many and they're not that deep, but they're still fun, and I feel like sharing them will give me something to look back on at the end of the year, which I think is pretty cool. And in addition to my few bookish goals, I thought it would be fun to take part in the 24 books in 2024 challenge, which fits in nicely with my very first bookish goal, which is I would like to read 60 books this year. I think I was pretty close because I wasn't doing an exactly great job of keeping track of my reading. I did not know at the beginning of 2023 what this renewed love of reading was going to entail. So I didn't do the best job at keeping track. And I honestly can't remember if some of the books were at the tail end of 2022 or the beginning of 2023. But I think at final count, I think I got to 57 books, which going from reading like maybe 5 or 6 books in a year to more than 50 in a year felt like a really big accomplishment. And considering some months I read as many as 9 to 12 books, I think 60 is doable, which means 5 books a month. If I read more than that, great. But I think I can do that because depending on the book, 1 to 2 books a week, like that feels really attainable. I'm not someone who's going to like, oh, I got to 60, I can stop. Like that's not how my brain works. It's more like, no, if I can get there, awesome. And then it will just feel that much better if I can surpass that. My next bookish goal is to just use the library as much as possible. So far, we're on the 3rd week of 2024. I'm doing pretty good. I've checked out 3 books so far. I've read 2 of them. Some of them are going back, and I actually have holds for a few other books, some of which are on this 24 and 2024 list of books I want to read I'm going to share, which feels really good. Because if I really love the book, I can still always go and get a physical copy, but I need to get myself out of the mindset that especially books that, maybe I missed that initial release window, it's past the time where like they're brand new and I wouldn't be able to get it from the library. Like if the library has it, even with my impatient brain, and they have it available, like just check it out from the library. If you love it, great. You can buy a copy to put on your shelf and have forever. But if it's just like meh, then you can be like, good, I'm glad I read it, but I don't need to keep it. I can put it in my reading journal or in my Notion or my Storygraph. That's what it is. Those are my kind of like 3 top reading tracking tools that I'm going to be playing with this year. That's one of my bookish goals, is keep track of my reading, as well as like really work to capture my thoughts about most of the books I read. Again, if some of them are just meh, I want to know that I read it and maybe give it like a little like 1, 2, 3 star rating. But if it's a 4 or 5 star book for me, I want to capture my thoughts and the feelings that the book made me feel. So I will mostly be doing that in my reading journal. This is my beautiful blue reading journal. Hopefully you can see that, from the Quirky Cup Collective. I mean, it's just gorgeous. And I'm getting ready to start filling her out today. Put my name. I'm going to put in my 24 and 2024 reading goal as a list. There's space to put reading challenges in here. And so far I have finished 1 book so far this year, and it was a library book, which feels really good. But before I take it back, I want to make sure that I have it handy so I can fill in kind of these bigger book review pages that they have in the back. Hold on, what's it? Yeah, so like title, your thoughts, ratings, notable scenes. You can like reference pages that you want to remember, favorite quotes, and then there's like lots of space to write like your final review, other notes, and even like a similar books section, which I think that will be good in this instance, where if I like read a book and then I want to go find like other similar books, either I can put books that I know are similar, or as I'm searching for books that are similar that might give me like a similar feeling, like recommendations that other people share, I can put those in there as well. So anyway, use this. I would like to continue to read diversely. I didn't I did a job. I definitely read some diverse reads in 2023, but I would really like to see if I could get it to like a 50-50 split. Like, I know there are a lot of authors that look like me who write great books, but there are also lots of people who don't look like me who also write really great books, sometimes probably even better books. And frankly, I want to read more diverse stories and tales and hear diverse people's opinions. So that's my goal. I really want to keep it at like a 50, like I want at least 50% diverse reads, whether that's diverse representation, whether it's queer, whether it's BIPOC representation, whatever it is. I really just want to make sure that the content that the books that I'm reading are of a diverse nature. I just want to continue that trend in my life. And then my last bookish goal, actually my second to last, I will share the other one, even though I'm kind of scared to share it on the internet, even though who knows if anyone will ever see this. That hopefully that goes with the goal though. But before I get into that one, I really want to take part in or start a local, like in-person book club, whether it's virtual or not. I really want to get out of the house and meet other people besides my husband who really enjoy reading, particularly fantasy, sci-fi, those kinds of stories. I can get behind some literary fiction for sure, but yeah, that's definitely a goal, is to just connect with some other like real people on more than a just comment on your social media, just on a deeper level. So I'm gonna try to get out of my comfort zone, and I think it would be better for me to just find a local book club. I know our local bookstore has a few book clubs, so I think I'm gonna try really hard to push myself to go to at least one, like sign up and register and partake in at least one. So again, we can hold me to that at the end of the year. And then my last bookish goal is I would just really like to see what happens with creating bookish content. Obviously, books are not the only thing that I talk about, but it is a big part of my life, and I'm having so much fun telling my friends about all of the great books that I'm reading. So, I'm taking a stab at starting a YouTube channel. I'm going to revive my Instagram account and just give her a refresh and kind of start all over and say, hey, we're gonna add this to the mix now, and just not be afraid of what people think, because I am older than your average content creator, I think. At least the ones that I can find whose content I enjoy. But I need to just stop worrying about what the other parents think, because frankly, I enjoy creating content. I find it fun, and that's really all that matters. So that's the last one. I'm not going to set like any number goals with that one, but I do want to see what happens if I can kind of stick to a consistent quality content producing, I don't want to say schedule either, practice. We'll call it a practice. So those are my bookish goals. If you have any bookish goals that you would like to share, please feel free to drop them in the comments. And without further ado, I'm going to share my 24 in 2024 book list with you. And I'm going to break it down into, I have 3 categories. One is books I already own, that like by I mean we, my husband and I, like already in our library at home. We already own these, and these are my priority on the already existing physical TBR. There's a section for those. There's a section for books that were previously published, but I do not own, but I really want to read them, whether I get them from the library or I find a copy. And then the last section is books that are releasing in 2024, because there are a number of those that I really want to read when they come out. I want to be in the club of people who can talk about these books when they become, available to the public. So without further ado, I think I already said that, but for real this time. So these are all the books, for the first group of books I'm going to share. I think there's 11 of them are books that we already own that I am very interested in reading in 2024. Right. Book number 1, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I do want to enter the world of Brandon Sanderson's writing, but my husband has already read this one and has moved on to book 2 and believes that I will, 1, really enjoy this. And it's nice when there are books that we can have some crossover over. I'm reading 2 other books right now, and I have promised him that this will be the next book I pick up when I am done with those 2. To be honest, I still don't know that much about the book, but I'm okay with that. I know there's just a really cool magic system in this. Yeah, that's actually really all I can remember right now, is that I know he said that the magic system in this is really cool and that he thinks I will enjoy it. And I trust his opinion on books. He knows my taste pretty well, especially books that he enjoys that I will also enjoy. He is usually pretty spot on about that. Speaking of books that he has recommended, I'll just share the other 3 that he has already read that he would really appreciate it if I would read them, so then we could talk about it. Book number 2, Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, a sci-fi book. I know it's the first book in the Expanse series. He listened to this one on Audible, said, Sarah, you really have to give this one a try. Again, I don't need to know a lot about a book going into it. Usually I kind of like hear a little snippet and I'm like, you know what? This is worth a moment of my time. Like, this is worth giving a chance to. All Systems Red by Martha Wells, which is the first book in the Murderbot series. I understand it's about a robot. It's named itself Murderbot. It is sentient. It's trying to figure out some stuff, but you know, they're pretty small. And I just want to be part of the club of people who understand Murderbot, who have experienced this. Same regards to like being in a club of people who have read a book. Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This is another one. My husband read this one and the second one. This is the first in a duology. And he's just like, Sarah, you got to do it. And I've heard so many things that they just fill people with hope and good feelings. And it's always nice to have a book like that in the mix. So I understand that this one is about a tea monk and a robot, and they form an unlikely friendship. And they're just hanging out together for the most part. So it sounds like a very cozy read, and one I will be very glad to pick up, you know, in between some of my other heavier, darker, longer reads. 4 down, 20 to go. And next is Bloodmarked by Tracy Dion. This is the second book in the Legendborn Cycle series. I read the first book towards the end of last year, and I didn't want to pick this one up immediately because I know it will be a little bit of a wait until the next installment in this series, but I also didn't want to wait too long because I do really want to know what happens next. And I loved Legendborn. I have yet to meet an Arthurian retelling that I don't like. That is just one of my favorite stories, myths. I love the tale of King Arthur, and I've loved all the Arthurian retellings that I've read thus far, and this was no exception. Not this, but Legendborn was no exception, so I am excited to see what happens next. Next one is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I read Circe right around this time last year and loved it. I still consider it one of my Roman Empire books. I think about that book often. I still feel very moved by that story, so clearly I was very affected by that book, so I immediately picked up The Song of Achilles. But I still haven't read it yet, which it's really bothering me. So I'm determined to get to this one. I think pretty soon. I don't know. I feel like the winter months just scream for a retelling like this one, something that's going to get me in my feels. 2023 was the year that I discovered Rebecca Ross. Very happy for me that happened, and this duology started to pop up more and more in a lot of recommendation videos and lists that I was seeing, and this is the first book in the Elements of Cadence duology, and so I would really like to get to this book and hopefully the second one in 2024. I've heard it's very lyrical and just a beautiful story, and I've just seen so many positive reactions. Again, like, I don't need to know a ton about the synopsis to know whether or not I want to try to read something. I already said that. I'm repeating myself, but you understand what I'm saying. But I know this one takes place on an island, and it's very atmospheric, and there's magic involved, and so I'm really excited to get to this one. The next book that's already on my physical TBR that I really want to get to this year is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. I feel like it's time. Brandon Sanderson's on the list. if he's going to be on the list, I feel like Robin Hobb also needs to be on the list. It's just time that I enter this world. And so Assassin's Apprentice is on the list. This is book 1 of the Farseer trilogy, but I know it's also like the first book in a much bigger, I think it's the Realm of the Elderlings is kind of like this whole big situation. I'm probably really wrong about that, but I know the Realm of the Elderlings has something to do with Robin Hobb. But I'll learn more because I haven't entered the world yet, but I'm going to in 2024. And I know it's about a boy who becomes a man named Fitz and has to go through some stuff. That is what I know about this book. Next, we have To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monoquill Blackgoose. And this is a book about dragons. There needed to be a book that had dragons in it on this list. And this one was just sitting there staring at me on my shelf. I bought it towards the end of last year after I just heard a ton of positive reactions and recommendations to it as people were looking for varied dragon books, you know, at a time when dragon books were being discussed a lot. Not that they aren't always discussed, but there was definitely a time last year where there were a few dragon books coming out, and this one kept coming up as another one you should really consider looking at. And I understand it is about a young indigenous woman who bonds, sorry, there's hair on my hand. I believe she bonds with a young dragon, and so she's kind of forced into this colonizer-led dragon school, but she quickly finds that she's going to, you know, butt heads with kind of the status quo, the rules that be, and then, you know, adventure ensues from there. So I am excited to read this one and just see what all the hype was about. 2 things. I love dark academia. I do enjoy that as a genre of books. I've also loved the 2 books by Leigh Bardugo that I read last year, Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. So put those 2 together, I really do want to read this. I fully meant to read this past autumn. I just didn't get to it, but I'm determined to get to this one this year. And from what I understand, because this is the first book of what I thought was a duology, but it looks like, according to Storygraph, there's actually going to be a 3rd book that comes out at some point in the future. So I hope I like it. I mean, I love this black snake on the cover. I love it. And it, you know what? It doesn't hurt that Stephen King said that this was the best fantasy novel he had read in years. You know, think what you want. He can really write a book, so his opinion, that's a good opinion. No wonder. See, I didn't even buy this. My husband bought this. Stephen King is his favorite author, so no wonder he bought this, but it's been staring at me. So hopefully we'll both get to this one. Around. Yeah. The last book that I already own that I would really like to get to in 2024 is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I think I feel a little embarrassed when I tell you that I actually haven't read anything by V.E. Schwab yet. But this is the year that turns around. And from all of the books of theirs that I have looked into, this is the one that has called out to me the most. I understand it's about a woman who kind of makes a deal that she will live forever, but nobody will remember her. But then a lot of time has passed, she lives a crazy life, and then somebody does. And that kind of, I believe, like sets off the story and like what that means and other things. But I've just heard such glowing reactions to this book. Again, something that will most likely really put me in my feels, something where I think I will relate to a lot of the characters. I am eager to put this one in my consciousness and get started on my journey with V.E. Schwab. The next category that I have are books that have already been published, but I do not own copies of them. First one is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, and I have been wanting to read this book since Reagan from the Peruse Project waxed so poetically about how beautiful and unique this fantasy story is. I know there's something to do, I think there's a little bit of a quest element, but it was just described as so unique, and I think it was one of her, you know, favorite books of 2023, and I just love the artwork on the cover, and just everything about this book screams like this is something you need to read. So clearly you can tell I'm pumped, I'm hyped, like I need to find a copy, whether it's through the library or I come across one, but I need to read that book before too much more time has passed. The next book that I do not own yet, or don't have a physical copy of myself, is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. There was just a lack of vampire books in my life in 2023, and I'm determined to alleviate that this year. And this book, from what I understand, is about Dracula's brides, and that just sounds so intriguing to me. And I understand that this author also has a new book coming out in 2024, I believe, called An Education in Malice, which also sounds really great, and it's set in the same world. And so I need to read this book. I need to be part of the group of people who have read A Dowry in Blood. The next book that I really want to read is The Women Could Fly by Megan Giddings. I saw this book in a book haul video over on Nikel's Nook, the YouTube channel Nikel's Nook, and I have just not been able to stop thinking about this book. From what I understand in this story is that women are expected to get married by a certain age. I think it's 30. And if they don't, they are subject to like basically get put in this system where they are tracked and monitored for fear that they might be witches, and witches exist in this world, and you don't want to be caught as a witch. That's bad. And that's about as much as I know. It's supposed to be good social commentary, and it just, I don't know, it felt like something I would like and be moved by, and my brain would eat it up and find it really interesting. The next is Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is the first book in a trilogy, I believe, and I feel like this book has just been tapping me on my shoulder, being like, hey, read me, since I heard about it. I love the concept of the magic in this one, where it deals with jade, like your ability to wield jade is like how much magic you have, and there's only certain families, I believe, that can do it. So I think there's like a feud between the families, and I've just heard there's such great like payoff when you like reading the entire series, and some people just say it's so unique and really worth giving some time to. So I would really like to start that series, if not complete it, in 2024. And then the last book that is already published but I do not own is Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. I read Masters of Death last year. I actually listened to it, and it was just a unique experience. And so I really want to give another book by this author a try. I also have I really want to read Alone with You in the Ether, but I also have the Atlas 6 downloaded on Audible. But Masters of Death, like, I really enjoyed that story, even though there were definitely parts where, had I been reading it, I would have gone back and reread it a few times because I had a little trouble following it. But at the end, like, I just felt really moved by this story, and I loved all the references to gods and angels and just all these like metaphysical beings. And Masters of Death was also one of those ones where I immediately upon finishing it like really enjoyed it. I'm glad I took in the story, but I know without a doubt that I want to go back and reread it, and I will actually experience something like new. I will get something else out of it going back and reliving that story than I did the first time. So I've heard good things about Alone with You in the Ether, and for whatever reason, like, that's the work by this author that just really stands out to me as the next one that I would like to read, to see if it was just a fluke with Masters of Death, or if Olivia Blake really just is going to be one of my favorite authors. And then we come to the section of this video that's just about the books coming out in 2024, that these are the ones that, of all of my research that I've done, of all of the videos I've watched, the lists I've read, like, these are the ones that stand out to me as of right now. I want to get them in my hands and I want to consume them immediately. So here we go. The first one is Feybound by Sarah L. Arifi. This one comes out on January 18th. I have it pre-ordered already. I'm pretty sure it's a signed copy that I pre-ordered from Waterstone, so I'm really excited about that. I know there are sisters, I know there are elves, I know there are fae, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some, spiciness to this book, and that was really all I needed to know. The next one is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal, which comes out on February 15th. I also already have this one pre-ordered. It's about I believe an orphan who has a tea shop, which by day is, a very nice tea shop, but by night, becomes this like blood house for vampires. And I know a crew have to perform a heist. And like I already said, there are vampires involved. So I already have to see there's not going to be a lack of vampires in my life in 2024. I don't love a ton of scary stuff, but for whatever reason, I can make an exception for vampires. The next one is The Principle of Moments by Esme Chikiemi Pearson. I believe that's how you pronounce that. I understand that this one is a space opera. There's time travel, there's like an ancient religion, and there's a prophecy. And I do love a good space opera. Love it, love it, love it. And I just kept hearing about this one, and I thought like this would be a good book to support. It's a debut author. So I've pre-ordered that one as well, because I'm pretty sure it only comes out in the UK on January 18th, because I was looking like here, like searching it on Barnes & Noble or regular Amazon, and there was like either wasn't there or it wasn't available. So I don't want to wait. Again, I want to read this book now. I know it was in like one of those book boxes last month, and so other people have already read it, and I want to read it. Okay, we're at 20. We're at number 20. So we're in the home stretch. This is probably the book that, now that I know that it's coming out in 2024, is my most anticipated new release. And it is The Blackbird Oracle by Deborah Harkness. A Discovery of Witches and the other two books in the All Souls trilogy, those are the books that for me are what reminded me how much I love to read. A Discovery of Witches is at this point probably my favorite book. And I have a few favorite books, but it is really up there. I love that book so much. I love Diana and Matthew. I love the magic combined with the history. It's just really great. And The Blackbird Oracle is apparently the continuation of Diana and Matthew's story. I understand it takes place some years after the ending of the third book. I'm just going to read. The description is: a new era begins for Diana, a confrontation with her family's dark past and a reckoning for her own desire for even greater power if she can let go finally of her fear of wielding it. And you know, never mind. Never mind. I was about to give a spoiler, but I'm not going to do that. If you haven't read the All Souls trilogy, you absolutely should. And I'm really hoping I'm not going to be disappointed by this continuation of the series. I know it's been a while since another book was released by this author, so fingers crossed that it was time well spent. But that one comes out on July 16th. Yeah, I really cannot wait. I'm so excited for more Diana and Matthew. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. All right, number 21 on my 24 in 2024 is Lore of the Wilds by Annalie Sprana. This one comes out on February 27th, and all I needed to hear was a library with a deadly enchantment. That line combined with the cover art for this thing, enough sold. I really want to read this story. Number 22 is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. And this one is a Norse-inspired fantasy romance story. So like enough there, because the Norse fantasy book I'm reading right now there's no romance to be had. So I really like just the other side of that coin. And I've just heard a lot of really positive buzz about this one. And it's set to be released on February 27th. All right. The next one is Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. I read Godkiller, I think in the fall of last year. Loved it. Really need to know what happens next. This one comes out on February 15th, so I don't have to wait too long, which is good for me because I really don't want to. Like, I really enjoyed that book. And then 24, we did it! The last book on my 24 books I want to read in 2024 is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. The date I saw for this one was April 2nd, and I read A Very Secret Society for Irregular Witches last year by this author and just absolutely loved it. Of all of the cozy books that I read last year, like this one was up there. I just really loved that story. So to get another cozy witchy read from this author just feels so right in my soul. And this one's about a witch who's running an inn, has to recover some lost magic, and of course, deal with a little bit of romance, which all combined sound like a good time. So that will be also another good, just cozy read to have available. You know, a lot of what I read tends to be kind of dark and adventurous. So to have something like that, like I don't read a lot of contemporary romance. It's just, I don't know, sometimes I just find it boring. If you know of a good one that based off of all the books I just told you I wanted to read that you think I wouldn't find boring, let me know. But a lot of times when it's like there's a little bit of magical realism thrown in there, I find it that much more enjoyable, which is what I think I will get from A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. And again, it'll just be good. Out of all of these, it's another cozy, not super high stakes, which will probably be good for my brain at some point. So with that, I'm going to add, like I said, all of those books to my little book journal, and I'm glad I already have a plan. The first one will get checked off this month. Who knows, maybe I'll even get to another one. But Mistborn is the first one up, and I'm sure I will tell you how it's going in the future. But for now, thank you so much for watching this video. I would love to know in the comments if you're planning on reading any of these books this year. Have you read any of these books already? What did you think? Or are there any other books that you think I should add? I know they won't be in my 24 in 24, but like I said, I'm trying to read 60 books this year, so there's room for a few more. And if you have any suggestions or recommendations, I am all ears. Thank you so much again for watching, and I'll see you next time.